Good evening. It's 6 o'clock. We'll begin the council meeting. It is Tuesday, December 9th in the council chambers. Call to order, roll call. Pledge of allegiance, please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Item C on the agenda is a public hearing, proposed changes to Marshfield Public Transit hours of operation. There are 3 people who would like to speak this evening. I will give you just a little bit of insight before you come to the podium. When you come up, state your name and address. You'll have 5 minutes to respond, and I have a little timer here. And now we are going to open public hearing. And Josh, you can step up first, and you have 5 minutes. And there's a little button on the long
the bottom of the microphone.
microphone. Thank you. Yep.
That one? You guys can hear me now? All right. My name is Josh Rovich. My address is my personal or business.
Personal, please.
Personal is 800 Heritage Drive, Marshfield, Wisconsin. I'm here. Some of you might know me. Some of you might not know me. I'm also the owner of the Great Dog Axe Throwing downtown. I'm also the Wood County Tavern League president. So over the last year and a half, the reason I'm talking about this whole taxi thing about that, one of the big concerns of the Marshfield area and the surrounding area has been Safe Rider. Safe Rider for taking drunk drivers home, safe impaired drivers, and so forth. So we brought Safe Rider, talked to taxi, we talked to everybody else. We have a Safe Rider coordinator out through Wood County. Her name is Deborah. Worked with that. Wisconsin Rapids has a pub pilot and Safe Rider taxis. A pilot runs after the taxis are done. All right, which is very costly. We pay employees, pay insurance, pay for the vehicle maintenance, and so forth. So we do a lot of fundraising for that. I looked at that, bringing that to Marshfield, worked with some organizations of funding that while bringing Safe Rider here. You guys are not familiar with Safe Rider. Safe Rider is an option for people who take this. Our establishments from Tavern League, members only, have to be registered. We'll call it taxi. We'll fill out a form. We'll fill out these tickets here, the place are picked up, the patron that's picking up, and the address are going home. No cost to them. We cover the charge of this. We have funding throughout the entire state to help prevent drunk driving, accidents, OWIs, things of that. Many people have lost their lives for that and been saved by Safe Rider. We've also been doing a big push for Uber. I'd be able to bring Uber to Wood County. Problem with that is hiring them. We're working with Uber on marketing dollars, and since we're Wisconsin, we're small rural areas, we get looked over a lot with Uber. You guys changing the laws or certain times of taxi will increase OWIs, could possibly increase injuries, deaths, or whatever it is among our patrons, your customers, your citizens, and so forth. So we're looking to work with something on that. We understand that the busier times are Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Taxi drivers, everything else. I know you got taxi companies funded by grants and funded whatever it is by people pay for rides, $5 share rides. We reimburse taxi services for their rides. What are you guys proposing for hours? Help me through this. Anybody?
This is your time, Josh.
Oh, it's my time? I'm looking for some.
So obviously you've done your research and you know what the times are.
Okay.
So,
right. Okay.
And that's this is your time. Yes, sir.
So we still need the taxis to run 2:30 on Friday night, 2:30 on Saturday nights, in the mornings. Weekdays, when we have the one thing that helps the businesses out and these leagues out, or these taverns out, especially members, is the leagues. Sometimes these pool leagues, dart leagues, whatever the leagues you have in this local area to get people taken home. People count on these rides home. People do get inebriated, impaired, or whatever you want to say, and want a safe ride home. They depend on this. You take that away from them, we have no alternative for them. Until we get a taxi or a pub pilot, if you guys want to help fund grant that would be great. If you guys want to help do the Uber and bring Uber here. Now, we do have Uber drivers in Marshfield area. The comments I've gotten from Uber drivers, not enough business in Marshfield to stay here. So they do 1 or 2 rides and head to Wausau, head to Stevens Point, somewhere else is busier, so they can make a living. Trying to convince people to become Uber drivers. Even if we get to a pub pilot situation, we'll still have to have drivers there every day at a certain time period. Now, we had somebody that used to come from out of town, charge $20, $30 a ride, and so forth. We're looking for alternatives. If it's absolutely no on taxis, we need your help in funding everything else. If it's okay, again, we pay for the Safe Riders, brands pay for the taxis. Let me know. Any questions, please reach out to me. Thank you.
Okay, your time is up, but Josh, I want you to stay at the podium, and I'm going to do something a little different this evening because you are here. We have 3 different individuals. If anybody on the council has any questions for Josh, rather than make him jump back up after we hear the other 2 proposals, the other 2 ideas. So if there's any questions for Josh, if there are none, thank you, Josh.
Thank you.
You're good. Thank you. You can leave it on. Yes. Next, Elizabeth Dewar. Oh, you have to turn the mic. Yeah. Turn it over.
Okay. My name is Elizabeth Dura. I live at 801 East Kelshed Street. I recently took over in the last 6 months as the vice president of Wood County Tavern League. So I've been bartending for almost 10 years. As taking a role of vice president, my main goal is to educate people on the Safe Ride Home program. If you're not familiar, as Josh said, it's a safe ride for anybody who doesn't feel like they are able to drive, that they are intoxicated, had one too many, and it offers a safe, free ride home for them. The Marshfield area Safe Ride program was pretty much non-existent the past 10 to 15 years. We are actively changing that. The taxi service is a big part of the Safe Ride Home program. With the program over the next 5 years, it will decrease the number of drunk drivers and DUIs in the city of Marshfield. The taxi service ends at midnight on Sunday through Thursday, which poses a gap in the safe transportation home because there is none. A group of 21-year-olds coming out to celebrate a birthday, wanting to call a cab at midnight on a Thursday, find out there's no cabs currently running. Sometimes there's a Good Samaritan who will run them home, but that doesn't always happen. Then you end up with whoever thinks they're the most sober out of the group, driving them home. They get pulled over, no prior offenses, and at this time, it changes their life forever because now they have a DUI on their record for the rest of their life. Not having public transportation for the late night hours has been an ongoing issue in a rapidly growing town. I want to fix that issue, whether it be Uber, Pub Pilot, getting awareness out there of the Safe Ride program. For bigger cities, like people that come for construction, nursing, they assume that there's taxis open. So when they come in, I make sure to tell them, hey, midnight taxis are closed. But not all of them know that. And then they decide, can I walk to the hotel or can I drive? Thank you.
Any questions for Elizabeth? Thank you, Elizabeth. And Patty Peschel?
My name is Patty Peschel. I live on 10,004 South Washington Avenue, and I am a cab driver. And let me tell you, this is nonsense, this wanting to close early. It's a safety issue for these people, not only the people that are out at the bars, but you have caregivers that go to work. They have to be to work at midnight. They call us between 11:30, 20 to 12. Now you want them to walk to work in the cold, or do you want them to go to work an hour and a half early and sit there until they're supposed to log in? So we need these cabs open. In my opinion, we should be open an hour early in the morning because the businesses in town all start at 6 o'clock in the morning. So they're losing out on a lot of good employees because they can't get to work. And as far as you guys thinking that we're gonna come in an hour early and work, if we close an hour early, that's not gonna work. We only have so many cabs, and some of the drivers work till a certain point, and then that person comes in and takes over for them. So there's no way of doing that. And not to get off the subject, but I know you guys think we're behind all the time, and we are because we're very busy. But when you guys had the mayor's card going, things were better. You were making more money because 75% of the people now in this town say they're disabled and they're not. And we can't question them on it. We have to give them a ride. So in my opinion, the cabs should be open an hour early, stay open until midnight, because you're gonna have somebody hurt somebody at between 2 o'clock and 3 o'clock in the morning on a Friday and a Saturday night. And the first time that happens, you're not gonna feel very well about that. So I just think we should leave it like it is. If nothing else, we should be open more. Or if you want another driver during the day, we need another cab, and we need enough hours for a full-time employee or maybe 2 part-time employees to take up the slack where it's needed. And I'm just a cab driver, so I'm not the boss or nothing like that, but that's just my opinion.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Patty.
Yep.
Any questions for Patty? Okay, thank you. Anyone else would like to express their opinions in public hearing? Anybody else in public hearing? Anybody else in public hearing? We will close public hearing. Thank you all for your comments. Moving on to item D, identify possible conflicts of interest. Seeing none, item E, public comment period correspondence. At this time, I will recognize members in attendance wishing to address council. Upon recognition by me, persons may address the council first stating their name and address. Comments will be limited to no more than 5 minutes, and persons are asked to be respectful when addressing the council. No action will be taken regarding items not on the agenda. However, the council will take comments from the public under advisement. Please note that council members will not respond to your comments or questions. Are there any public comments? Are there any public comments? See no public comments, we'll move on to item F, approval of minutes, November 25th, 2025 regular meeting. We have a motion by Alderman Fire, second by Alderman Werman. Are there any questions, comments? Seeing none, please vote.
Mrs. Spiros?
Yes.
Mr. Rigel?
Aye.
That motion passes, thank you. G, staff updates.
I'm not aware of any this evening.
H, mayor's comments. I just want to thank again the 3 individuals who came up and spoke this evening. A lot of times people see public hearings and they don't do anything about it, so I commend you all 3. I did get a few phone calls from other folks, and basically the same thing was reiterated by them. So this is basically the theme of what's going on with this public hearing. Item I, comment from the council. Alderman Tompkins?
Thank you. I was able to join via Zoom, the site development training that was yesterday that Mackie had asked us if we could join. And I just wanted to say it was super interesting because it was about attracting industry to places. And the person who was the main speaker, he's sort of like a headhunter for companies where they say, we want to expand, we want to grow. Can you find a site that fits us? And so when we're thinking about our certified site, one of the things that they talked about that was interesting, and I thought, wow, we have not done this yet, is we need to figure out as a community what our goals are for what type of industry we want to attract. So we have to look at like what we have, what kind of power do we have, what kind of water do we have, what's our workforce, what's our childcare availability, all these factors that industries are, different industries will want different things. And once we as a community, then we have to figure out, do we want something that brings more jobs, or do we want something that brings more high paying jobs, or do we want something that raises our tax base, or something that, those sort of things. And then we have to look at, what do we have to offer? Do we have rail? You know, he talked about, do you have barge? Well, obviously we don't have a river. So we talked about those things. And So it just made me realize, when we do the strategic planning, there's so many layers of strategic planning. And this would just be like one layer of it to say, as a community, what do we have to offer for industries and what industries do we want to attract? Because once we decide what we want, whether it's food and beverage, light manufacturing, then we can, ask Mackie and ask staff and sort of focus on those industries and say, hey, this is what we have to offer. So that was just a really interesting workshop.
Thank you. Any other council comments? Seeing none, city administrator's update.
Thank you, Ware. Councilmember Tompkins' comments were a good segue to my first comment. I think she covered it really well. I was in the session with her on the webinar, and there's a lot of good stuff for us to dig into as we look forward to hopefully attracting more business here in 2026. Along with that, I've sent out a note, and quite a few have responded to my request for your availability. Just confirm those 2 dates of January 17th and January 31st in terms of your participation for the strategic planning meetings, which will be held over at the community center. But if you haven't responded to me yet, please do. I really need to know that on those 2 dates, whether or not we have a confirmed, solid quorum or not. So if you haven't replied to me yet, I'll send you another note probably tomorrow and do weigh in so we know how many people we have on those 2 dates in January. As far as next Tuesday, a week from tonight, it's going to be a very full night. It's our last meeting night for the year because we're not going to meet around Christmas. So on the 16th, a week from tonight, we'll have JL, Judiciary and License at 4:45, Finance, Budget, and Personnel at 5 o'clock, Board of Public Works at 5:45, Plan Commission at 6:30, and Council at 7:30. If you're wondering why Plan Commission will be in between the Council subcommittees and Council, it's because some of those items will need presumably to be approved by the Council if in fact they're found to be in order. So we want Plan Commission to go first. So 4:45 it starts it out, and then we won't have a regular meeting until 2026 after that. The other thing I want to do is get you caught up a little bit on items for future agendas that came out of the November meetings. There were a handful. First of all, I'd like to mention that Councilmember Rigel brought up about the Wenzel Family Plaza Committee looking at the bathrooms. I've done some looking back since then, kind of dug into the history and how far we went, where we were. We did have virtually half the committee is no longer anymore. Either they're not members of the Main Street Board or they're not members of this body or whatever brought them onto that committee, they're no longer here. So they need to be reconstituted. I have a meeting on Friday with the Main Street Executive Director, the new one now, Carter, and we're going to go through some ideas as to how to get that thing back off the ground and get the right people on there and get moving. Two were brought up by Councilmember Werman, and I think they were both addressed well by Park and Recreation Director Justin Casperson. One was about Vanderhay Waters, the other about the status of projects for Central Wisconsin State Fair. I don't know if you had any questions, but I did forward those out to the entire body, so you can take a look at those reports and see where those particular projects are at. There's still two items yet to follow up on for items from the November meetings, and I will be doing that as soon as I can get to them. And that's all I have for my report today.
Thank you, Administrator Barg. Item K, reports from commissions, boards, and committees. Seeing none, move on to item L, consent agenda, meeting minutes and reports. We have a motion by Alderman Della, second by Alderman Werman. Any questions, comments about the consent agenda? Seeing none, please vote.
Mrs. Spiros?
Yes.
Mr. Rigel?
Aye.
That motion passes, and we can slide past M because there's no action for M to move to items from consent agenda. Item N, request to approve resolution number 2025-36, supporting Transportation Alternatives Program grant application for an extension to the Pecan Parkway to Greasy Park Trail, presented by Justin Casperson, Director of Parks and Recreation.
Good evening and thank you. Park and Recreation is requesting approval of a resolution supporting the Pecan Parkway to Greasy Park Connector Trail and Wisconsin DOT TAMP grant application. This resolution is required for eligibility during the Transportation Alternative, or known as TAP, grant process. A little bit about the project itself is the Pecan Parkway to Greasy Park Trail Connector project itself. It will be a 10-foot wide asphalt trail connecting the Pecan Parkway to Greasy Park through an existing greenway in the parkland itself. The new trail will improve neighborhood connectivity and direct access to Greasy Park. It will provide a safe off-street route for children, seniors, and people with disabilities. It will reduce pedestrian vehicle conflicts and enhance overall trail safety. It'll encourage daily walking, biking, jogging, and support public health. It'll strengthen social and recreational connections within the surrounding neighborhoods and reduce short car trips and lowering emissions and supporting city sustainability goals. The trail aligns with the city's vision for a safe, active, connected community trail network. The project is identified as a top priority in connection with the 2021 Bicycle and Pedestrian Master Plan, the 2024 through 2029 Comprehensive Outdoor Recreation Plan, and the city's capital improvement program. Public demand for this type of development is still strong. It was still a top requested amenity in the 2022 community survey. The Marshfield Area Friends of the Trails actively supports this project, and the Weber Foundation has expressed interest in contributing to the local match. Now, the grant funding itself, the TAP grant is $590,000. $472,000 would come from the grant. The city's portion would be 118 of that 118,000. 50,000 would be through private donations. The Friends of the Trail has agreed to assist in the fundraising aspect. It's a grant reimbursement, so the city would pay the upfront costs and then get reimbursed from the DOT later. A council-approved resolution, which is tonight, is required for the grant program. So without the resolution being approved, we're not eligible for this grant application. The grant notification will be sometime in late spring 2026. Design was scheduled for 2029, and construction is not until 2030, so it's a few years off. The project's a little bit different than our last trail project. It's cleaner, more direct, and lower impact. There's no property acquisition, there's no easements, there's no utility conflicts. The trail does not abut up to any residential neighbors, so we don't have to acquire any additional lands. There's no right-of-way or stormwater complications to work around. The only workaround we really have is wetlands and waterways, which has already been addressed by MSA as well as DOT. And then it ranks among the top 3 in connections in our bicycle pedestrian plan. I think when combined with the future playground that's scheduled for next year, this connection will significantly enhance Greasy Park's long-term recreation value, improve the neighborhood appeal, and particularly the development of the Green Acre subdivision right on Washington. So what tonight I'm asking for is to approve resolution supporting the Pecan Parkway Greasy Park Connector Trail and authorize staff to continue advancing the project, including grant submission and partnership. I just want to make sure it's clear that this does not guarantee anything. This means that we're just being eligible for a grant. The project still cannot move forward without successful grant acquisition. So without that successful grant, we just don't move forward with that project. So we need the money to be in hand before we can even start with design.
We have a motion by Alderman Tompkins, second by Alderman Giles. Are there any questions, comments from the council? Alderman O'Reilly?
Thank you. Justin, can these grants be used for anything other than trails, or is that the only application?
There's a number of programs. Some are for trail development, like pedestrian plan, like safe routes to school, could be used for design services for maybe a future development, but it's typically to assist alternative other than roads, so trails,
Okay.
sidewalks, anything besides vehicles.
Okay, yeah, I was hoping it could possibly be applied to, for instance, like Brayham Park or some option like
Only
that.
if we build a trail in Brayham Park.
Yeah. Yeah, I won't be supporting it, and I'm going to just tell you why is because to me, it's irresponsible knowing what we're cutting from our budget. And it is a relatively small impact on the city's portion of it, but there is going to be continuing upkeep, snow removal. It just all adds to our budget again every year. So thank you.
Any other comments, questions? Alderman Spiros?
So I just have a question. So the last trail that we finished came in significantly over budget. And I believe that was also partially grant funded, if I recall correctly. Correct me if I'm wrong. But when it went over budget, the city was on the hook for the entire amount that it went over budget. Would this one work the same as that if it goes over budget?
That is correct, yes.
And then do you remember, like, I can't remember the number, but what was the last one? What was the cost of that one over?
I was not involved in that project. I don't know if, Josh, you remember the number by chance. I know there was a number of public works directors involved between Tom Turchi and Dan Connect that's kind of lost.
I don't remember the number, how much we exceeded the budget, but I do know the construction costs came in, the bid costs came in under the estimate. The additional costs, I believe, were, there was some confusion at the beginning whether right-of-way acquisition costs were reimbursable or not. And it turned out they were not reimbursable or grant eligible. So that became an entirely city cost. I think the design did go a little over budget, but construction-wise, it came in under.
Okay. So it was because we had to acquire land that we didn't anticipate, and then that is not a covered cost of the
Yes.
grant, is what you're saying.
Yep.
But then I think I heard Justin say there was no land acquisition with this trail,
Yes, correct.
correct?
It's entirely through city
Okay.
property.
So what would, again, be the plan, though, if we would be over budget on this? What would be the plan? Is there a plan in place? Because I'll tell you what I'm upset about. I'm upset about the fact that the council was informed after all the money was spent. And it came to us for, a budget resolution that it's just we had no choice really, because you already spent the money. So what's the situation with this one? What will be different if that's the case?
Well, we will know the costs when bids are open, so we would know what the costs are, assuming everything tracks. There's no additional work necessary. We would have a design contract approved. All these things would be brought before the council before any work is started on them. So we should know bid prices at the time of the beginning of construction. It may go over if, like I said, if there's additional work being added to the project midstream, but otherwise we should know that upfront.
So, so just so you understand, my point would be that I don't want to be put in a position again where the budget doubles and the council has no choice but to say yes. So I just want to be reassured that that will not happen in this situation.
Okay, Alderman Werman.
Thank you. I think Justin did a good job basically clarifying that assuming we don't get this grant, then we can't move forward with this project. So the only thing I would ask for clarity, just hopefully to help put the council's mind at ease, is just, so what happens with the money from the resolution then? Do we just put it back in like general fund or?
This is just saying that you're signing off on the direction we're going. There is no dollars allocated towards anything.
That's what I thought. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments for Justin? Seeing none, please vote.
Mrs. Spiros,
No.
Mr. Rigel,
Aye.
That motion passes. Thank you. Item O, request to approve proposed list of election inspectors and special voting deputies for a 2-year term, calendar years 2026, 2027, presented by Jessica Schiffrel, City Clerk.
in your packet this evening, you had a list of proposed election officials and special voting deputies for the 26-27 election cycle. That list had just over 100 names. Obviously, I don't use all 100 workers at every single election, but there are elections that I use almost every single person on that list. It comes to you tonight just because state statute says I have to bring it to you for approval, that this is a list of people I intend to use for the next election cycle.
We have a motion by Alderman Marshall, second by Alderman Tompkins. Alderman Tompkins?
I did notice that there was someone's name twice. Did that matter?
If you just want to point that out to me, I'll make sure I fix it.
There was a Deborah Katona and a Deb Katona. One was under the Republican and one was under the
Okay,
nonpartisan.
thank you. She came to us last year outside of party nomination.
Any other questions, comments? Seeing none, please vote.
Mrs. Spiros,
Yes.
Mr. Rigel,
Aye.
That motion passes. Thank you. Item Q, update on redevelopment of current Weinberner facility, presented by Steve Barg, City Administrator.
I think we have one before that.
Oh, I'm sorry. Request to make,
That's okay.
sorry, Jordan. Request to make proposed changes to hours of operation for Marshfield Public Transit, presented by Jordan Munger, Accounting Manager.
Howdy. So I just wanted to outlay the proposal again, was starting 1/1/2026, reallocating hours from Sunday to Thursday, 11 p.m. to midnight, as well as Saturday and Sunday, 2 a.m. to 3 a.m. to earlier timeframes. So essentially, we would be cutting off at 11 p.m. Sunday through Thursday night, and Friday, really Saturday morning, cutting off at 2 a.m. instead of 3 a.m. And that's also Saturday and Sunday, morning. So the city is still offering a service to later night and bar traffic commuters compared to most other cities in Tier 3 programs. You'll find several packets of information as far as Monday, Saturday, and I believe Sunday nights to show basically comparable cities within inside of our grant program that show timeframes of when they end and when we end. And we're pretty generous from that perspective. The idea was to utilize contracted hours during peak timeframes to lessen wait times. Information from 10/1/2024 through 9/30/2025 was compiled. From that, here's some overviews. There's a total rides of about 94,000. Average rides per hour of the day were about 12.6. So at any given hour of the day, you'll probably have about, on average, 12.6 hours. Median was the highest, or the median time frame was 12.5, between 5 and 6 p.m. Max rides per the hour of the day was 2 and 3 p.m., 20.5. What this change in timeframes would really be looking at was less than 2% of the rides. Specifically, about 400 rides from 2 a.m. to 3 a.m. The lowest attended time frame was 1 a.m. to 2 a.m. So if rides were to shift back 1 hour, they could fill our lowest attended time frame. Impacts during, so we did a deeper dive review also on June 2025. It's hard to take 94,000 rides and look at all of the data associated. So we just looked at June 2025, just did some analysis. So the max differences between pickup and arrival times are significant between 10 a.m. and 3 p.m. It is not uncommon to see a 35 to 60 minute difference. Some occasions were above 65 minutes. Only one high wait time was observed during the proposed reallocated periods during June, which meant more than 85% of the max wait times were rides for either a residence or to the clinic and hospital. So back and forth in between that. And just reiterating, Sunday to Thursday, 11 p.m. to midnight, I did see some items here. 70% or greater than 70% of the traffic was general, which could be commuters from work, could be shopping, not bar traffic. So roughly 26% of that was bar traffic that I could nail down. Saturday and Sunday, 2 a.m. to 3 a.m., greater than 90% of that was bar traffic. So there is a fair amount there. Again, roughly 400 rides during a year. So I did reach out also to Running Incorporated, and I vetted and asked my questions there. At that point, I didn't have the contacts to individual drivers. I talked to their management, and I asked them about this, as whether or not this would be a severe disruption or anything from that perspective. They told me no, it's not a severe disruption. It's not many hours being allocated or removed. That's what I got. So in conclusion, basically, we would shift the late night hours and open them up to midday hours where commuting is heavier. Rides in reallocated timeframes could at times be moved back an hour to fill up the less traveled periods. We as a city are endeavoring to use our resources wisely in order to benefit the largest amount of our residents in the best way we can. The proposal is a small change. We don't anticipate it to cause major disruptions. We will evaluate the data in the future and see what happens. So with that, I just have the request.
Alderman Tompkins?
Thanks, Jordan. So when do the bars close? What time?
I believe that's in the state of Wisconsin. Is that not 2 a.m.? 2:30? Okay.
2 o'clock, okay. So there's about 400 rides a year that are happening between 2 and 3 a.m. Is that what you said?
Correct. During the time frame that I looked at, October 2024 through 9/30/2025.
And about 90% of those rides are coming from bars?
Correct.
Okay.
At least, no. At least during the June 2025 period that I was looking at.
Okay.
Over 90% was.
Okay, during that June period. And then if we cut off an hour of taxi service, how much money does that save the city? Not grant money, but how much? Because we not only get grant money, we also pay money for the taxi service.
Yeah, I think that's a good question. What you're also asking too is how does this actual service get paid for? So the service is a four-legged stool. There's federal grants, state grants, taxpayer dollars, and fares. All of those get into the equation.
Okay.
How much does this equate to as far as dollars? Well, I guess you could say that maybe all of these are non-disabled riders and it's $5 per rider. But then if they're just going home maybe an hour earlier, is that losing any money?
But
I mean, from the state of the taxpayer.
Yeah, but so do we know if we broke the four-legged stool down about, if you broke it down, our costs for how many days of the year, how much, 24 hours a day, how much it costs the city, like the taxpayers, to run a service per hour? Do you happen to know what that is?
I'm sorry. I was going to say, yeah, the total cost of the contracted service is $1.2 million. We get 56% or 54%, mind you, on grants.
Okay.
The rest is from fares and taxpayer dollars.
Okay.
Close to over $100,000 from taxpayer dollars.
So how much money are you hoping to save by changing the hours of the program?
Zero. Yeah, I'm not, this is just reallocating hours to higher timeframes during the day to help out with those wait times.
Oh, because maybe I don't understand. So you're taking an hour off at night, but are you adding an hour to the morning?
Yeah. I'm not asking for us to change our contracted hours. That was never part of this request.
Okay.
To reduce the total amount of hours and timeframes.
Okay, thank you.
This was just talking about, could we shift the hours differently?
Okay. So could you, just to clarify for me and maybe other people, we're saying we want to shift the time, take it from an hour from the evening, and we're going to open up the service at what time in the morning?
It's the same opening time frame. So the
You're
way
just
they can balance their hours from the amount of drivers that they have.
Okay, because our speaker said that wouldn't have mattered because of, but she just said that, one of our commenters just said that shifting that would not change the amount of drivers, but.
I didn't get that comment from their management.
Okay, thank you.
Alderman Werman?
Thank you. These topics are never fun. And Jordan, I do want to commend you guys because you guys have been doing everything you can to think outside the box for a lot of this stuff. I think for me, this probably just isn't the solution for me for anything right now. I look at it like, are the odds that people will move ahead to a different time? It's possible. I don't know what kind of economic impact we have on any businesses that might be open late where people are there getting rides at this time. I applaud what you guys are doing because I really like that you guys are trying everything you can to help solve problems that we have. I don't think this is the right solution for me. I would rather see us still offer those timeframes just for the few people that are out there. We've cut a lot from the city, and keeping one of those things consistent, especially in an area where we do have a lot of people out at night. I mean, from the hours of 1 to 2 a.m., if I'm reading this correctly, from the hours of 1 to 2 a.m. on Saturday night going into Sunday morning, you have about the same amount of people getting rides as you do from 2 to 3 a.m. in that June data. Now, mind you, that's 1 month out of 12 months, right? You have a lot of data that you guys could look at. But when I look at that, I'm like, that's a comparable time then. If you're telling me that we have the same amount of people taking rides within those 2-hour periods, I think that I would want to keep that available for people. And it is a short drop in between that Friday to Saturday timeframe from 1 a.m. to 2 a.m. and then 2 a.m. to 3 a.m. There's a difference of 5 people, but that to me is still enough that it would justify keeping those timeframes. So I would say for me, I'm going to vote no on this one. But I do appreciate you guys, and I definitely appreciate the extra insight that you guys give on this as well.
Alderman O'Reilly?
I think I fall in.
Microphone?
I
Thank you.
think I fall in a similar category here. I don't think I can support this, and it's for a different reason. My biggest concern is one accident is devastating. And although I don't know how much time you can shave off of these rides, I completely I love your analysis of it. But it is concerning that if we're switching that 1 hour and the cabs are all operational at that time, how are we actually going to shave any time off of that? And then you weigh that with the risk of what could happen between that hour before closing. And for me, I can't support that. But again, thank you. That was good analysis.
Any other questions, comments? Alderman Weigel?
Thank you. Just to make sure I have this understood correctly here, we're shifting the hours, still the same total amount of hours, and the goal of this is to reduce the wait times in more peak hours. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. So when I'm looking at the median here, and well, let me, before I get to that part, was there a reason we picked June, or is that just some random month that we picked just for?
It's to show you guys that how early along in the process that we start our analysis.
Right, no, I get that. I just didn't know if there was.
No, that's about the time that I started looking at this.
Oh, okay. Because when I'm looking at the median, I'm looking at what, 8, 9, 7 minutes. I mean, that's not much time. That's getting it from one side of the city to the other. I'm not sure how much time we'd actually shave off of the median or the average for that matter. Is it really worth cutting off an hour at the end of the day to have a ride show up 2 minutes earlier?
I think the point also was the max wait times. There are some that are over an hour.
Right, and I guess, and that was gonna be my next question, was the max wait time. Do we, because I'm assuming that on the max wait, and you've seen all the data and you've summarized it very well here, but, you know, so let's just pick on 6-1 where there's a max wait time of 76 minutes. You know, was the second most, 60 minutes, or was the second most 15?
It's a good question.
And, right, and I guess what my point is that just purely an outlier, or are there a bunch of them that are doing that? Because if it's just one outlier, I'm not sure shifting the hours is really going to solve that one outlier. But, no, I do appreciate the data. We wouldn't be able to make an informed decision without it. So I do appreciate Jordan. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Yeah, I typically, at least historically, have gotten most of the calls coming in when people are dissatisfied with the taxi service. And I don't get a whole lot of them, to be honest with you. Maybe 1 or 2 a month at most, truthfully. When I do, it's typically the most common one is wait times. And I'm not trying to lead this conversation in any direction. And I think that's partly because, and I think this is what the study kind of shows, that the demographic looking for the taxi service that really rely on it, looking for getting to medical appointments and getting groceries and those kind of things, it's a period of the day, just a short number of hours where everybody's looking to get rides. So I think that's where the idea comes from, that if we could shorten those wait times and get a cap, more of a cap on the maximum wait time, it'd be a good thing. But having said that, I certainly respect the comments being made about the back end as well. I just want you to know that is what we typically hear when we hear some concern.
And actually, the calls that I get are both ends of the spectrum. People have to wait. But then again, people that come overnight, like people that call me and say, well, how am I going to get to work at 1 o'clock in the morning because that's when my shift starts. So then I'm going to have to sit there for another hour and a half. I don't get paid for that. I have to pay my babysitter more money. There's all the things that happen with this. And the Tavern League with paying for the people's rides home, that would go away, obviously, because it's the time frame, correct? So yes, I'm getting both ends of the spectrum from people calling me. I don't get quite as many calls as I used to, and that's really a good thing, so I thank you. But I'm here for anybody, call, and I think it's great that people do actually come. And again, thank you three for being here and giving you some insight, regardless of how this plays out, correct? And Alderman Weigel has got his hand up again.
Yeah, one other question just occurred to me. So once again, picking on that 6-1 date with 76 minutes, do we know what time of day that 76-minute wait time was? Or does the data not go that deep?
I'd have to check my spreadsheet and open it up and find it. But we would know the time frame.
Okay. Because I guess my follow-up question to that would be, if we're shifting the hours to try to decrease the max time, are we sure that we're actually decreasing, or are we just shifting it in hopes that it matches? But that's all. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Seeing none, please vote.
Did somebody make a motion?
We don't have a motion.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Motion, yeah.
Oh, you don't have a motion. We need a motion. We need a motion and a second to vote. And just because you motion or second doesn't mean you have to vote yes, correct?
Make a motion.
Rebecca makes a motion. Second by Alderman Weigel. Any other questions, comments?
What is your motion, Mrs. Spiros?
My motion is to, let me go back to what is written here. I'm thinking it's to approve the changed hours according to what Jordan presented.
Thank you.
And Alderman Weigel, you're in agreement with that motion? Any other questions, comments? Now, seeing none, please vote.
Mrs. Spiros?
Yes.
Mr. Weigel?
Nay.
That motion fails. Moving on to item Q, update on redevelopment of the current wine burner facility presented by Steve Barr, City Administrator, and I apologize, Jordan. Thank you again for all your hard work on the project, and maybe something will happen in the future. Go ahead, Steve.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, you have a fairly long memo in the packet that I put out, and I'm not going to go over the first part, because the first part's a little bit of a history of how we got here. It talks about 2024, and I think most of you, even the newer members, have caught up to speed on what we went through last year when we began the RFQ process. But kind of diving into where we were more recently, in September 2025, at your direction, after you reviewed a new revised request for qualifications, I sent it out, working with the consultant Vanderwall, to about 140 firms across Wisconsin and the surrounding states. We also made efforts to advertise the RFQ in relevant publications. I put it in the League of Wisconsin Municipalities. I think we put it in the American Planning Association and a couple of other places where people might see it. Although there were a handful of inquiries, only one response was received. It's from a local group that actually proposed back in 2024 as well. The response that they submitted did not respond to all of the parts of the RFQ. We went back to them. They were kind enough to provide additional information, which was great, but they subsequently decided to rescind their response, leaving us with no parties to consider for the project. It was kind of determined that the best thing to do at that point was to get the team together anyway and talk about next steps, but also to ask that party that had put in a response to maybe meet with us and talk about why they rescinded it. What do they see in the project that's good? What concerned them about moving forward and being considered as a developer? Kind of get some input that might help us going forward. So we did that. And we did that on December 4th. We had a meeting of the RFQ selection team here at City Hall. We did have Jack Beslick from White Rose Doorways, the company that had made the proposal initially. He gave us some good input. And I'm just going to hit a couple of points from the memo that I sent out. He noted that adaptive reuse, in other words, taking an old building like this and trying to create it to be something else, does come with challenges, including the estimated cost. I mean, you may think you know what you're going into, but once you get into it, you're not really sure. He also mentioned that he had some concerns about parking. We've talked about the parking issue over there, that it's going to be potentially tight, that the city needs to work with any developer to try and carve out more parking to make it feasible for residential, given how many cars people have per unit these days. So that concerned him. And then his pro forma, what he submitted as part of his response, did include a fairly significant gap that we need to be filled by the city through tax increment financing or some other means. And that raises a question again, would we be able to meet that request anyway? So that was part of the feedback he gave us on that day. The committee actually talked for quite a while after that and tried to decide where we go with this next. What do we do now? We've been through this twice. So based upon the comments we got from Mr. Breslek and some other things, here's what we kind of came up with. Number one, we should look at options to facilitate more parking. We don't know what the developer might come up with if we got another developer. Would it be mixed use? Would it require more parking or less parking? But we've talked about Spruce Street. We've talked about, on-street parking. We've talked about, are there other ways to carve out more parking to make a development feasible to meet that need? And that we should take a little bit of a look at how to help do that. We also talked about some street and utility issues that were raised by the developer. Some things we need to be concerned with, maybe as how that project would happen that might involve our infrastructure. We also talked about two other things to do. One, Vanderwall, our consultant, would go back and talk with additional developers that they think might be interested. The so-called go back to your own Rolodex. People that they've dealt with across Wisconsin, Illinois, Minnesota, surrounding areas, that they think might be a good fit for this, even if they didn't reply. Maybe they got the email. Maybe they saw it in publication, but for some reason they didn't respond. And kind of prompt them a little bit. This would be a good fit for you. Why did you choose not to reply? See if we can get another response that way. And then we agreed the city would speak to developers that came forward back in January. You may recall we interviewed 4 firms back in that day. They were all for affordable housing projects. But go back to the other 3 and say, maybe go back to all 4 actually, that we interviewed and say, okay, now that we're not going to accept an affordable housing project, it appears, you didn't respond with other ideas. It's been 12 months. Would you at all be interested in coming back to the table and proposing some other type of project that might be interesting? You're obviously a quality developer. But those were the 4 things we could do to try and resurrect interest, if you will, for lack of a better term, in redeveloping that building. So here's the takeaways we got from the 2 RFQ processes together as a team, as we kind of debriefed, for lack of another word. Due to the unique challenges of the project, the developer will have to have experience with similar projects. We kind of come to the perspective that there's a lot to this. This is not a minor project. That even if people have things going for them, they've got some understanding and stuff, you're probably going to have experience with similar projects to make this come to pass. Number 2, the market rate rents in Marshfield are lower than other rents in larger markets. So the idea of a mixed use project with market rate may ultimately require financial participation from the city, and maybe to more than a little degree, we don't know, in order to make that work financially for the developer. Otherwise, rents would have to be a lot above what we've seen before in the market here. We also talked about historic preservation tax credits are needed, and housing tax credits. They can both bring more revenue to the project, but they also have some hindrances, possibly, in the case of housing tax credits, rent limitations. So here's the primary options we kind of came up with as a team for where we go from here. If the city level of financial participation isn't possible, that may be needed for a development, the ones we're talking about, and or if a developer can't be found to want to do the project, we don't find a suitable developer. Explore an interim use. We find somebody else to occupy the building for a while that would do a project and at least inhabit the building, give us some rent, give us some occupancy that would be positive for maintenance of the building as well. B, continue recruitment efforts for the city's vision that we have right now, market rate and mixed use. And again, this would probably require some financial participation by the city. Number 3, or C, I should say, rethink or revise our vision for the use. Would we consider a business incubator project? Would we consider allowing a community organization to inhabit that building and do more of a nonprofit type of operation, or something that's good for the community in ways we don't normally think of in terms of profit and loss, if you will? Maybe a clinic use, possibly, who knows? D would be, do we explore the possibility of partial demolition of the building? Would that do something for us in terms of creating more opportunities for the property, the portion that's remaining, to be redeveloped? And then finally, would we consider full demolition of the building? I don't think that's anything anybody wants to see. We didn't go into this with the idea of tearing down a historic structure, but there's a point in the process where you may say to yourself, is it something we should at least consider to raise the structure and redevelop the block in some way? Not advocating for it, just putting it out there as an option that comes into your mind if in fact others are not coming to pass. So tonight, we're not looking for any direction from you at this point. We're giving you a lot of information. I'd welcome any discussion or comments that you might have on what you think the next steps ought to be for that property. But that's the way the committee that met on December 4th kind of saw it based on the conversation and meeting with the developer that chose to back away.
Any questions, comments for Steve? Alderman Werman?
Thank you. Can you remind me what the financial impact is of not doing anything with this building right now? Like, how much is it affecting us?
At all?
Yeah.
The only rent or money we've been getting from the building is the money rental being paid by Weinbrenner, which is right now $4,000 a month or $48,000 a year. Their current lease expires on March 31st of 2026. They are moving into the new facility. So I guess we lose that revenue, which we're going to lose either way. The biggest issue for the city, and you're going to hear us talking more about it, is if it stays vacant for very long, we're going to have some maintenance needs. Even initially, we're going to have heating and all those kind of things with utilities, but just the upkeep of the building and protecting it against vandalism and those kind of things will come into play.
Perfect. Yep. And that's exactly why I asked, because I think it kind of gives us an idea on time frame, but also there's going to be a lot more that we're going to end up pouring into it if we don't find a path forward. The other question I would have just totally left my brain. It's going to come back to me in just a second.
Let me stall for you for a second, okay?
Yeah, thank you.
I want to add my last point. There's a number of us from staff are meeting over at the Weinbrenner building tomorrow at 10:30 to walk through the building. They're offering us the walkthrough because they want us to see some of the issues or become familiar with the HVAC and the utilities and some of the parts of the building that may need some work if time passes. And that's part of where we're trying to get ahead of the maintenance issue.
You just brought it back to me.
Good, I'm glad.
Yep,
Stalled long enough.
Perfect segue. I was going to ask, because one of the feedback items we got was not knowing what they're getting into. We had a similar situation with the Buffalo building when we took that over before moving into the police project. Have we considered the potential of doing a survey here so that we have a better idea of what is really going on in that building that we can pass along to developers? It's usually a cost that I think a lot of developers take on themselves, but if we're having a hard time getting proposals, it may be beneficial for us to look at that cost rather than eventually just churning and not pulling anybody in.
Are you talking about maintenance?
I'm talking about like an actual survey of the building that we can provide to developers so they know what they're getting into.
Oh.
Because the big problem that, from what I'm understanding from that feedback, the big problem is they're going to go into a building and they might go to rip down a wall and then they're like, oh, what the heck is this? We don't know what to do now. Or it's going to jack our costs up. So getting a survey done, similar to what we did with Buffalo, where we kind of said, hey, here's what you're walking into, it may benefit them, but it's going to be a cost. It's just, where does that offset?
I think, before we do that, or in conjunction with doing that, I think we have to determine what next steps we do. In other words, are we okay? Okay. Are we thinking, is the council thinking at that point about trying to remarket it, even if we take a little bit of time to, because you don't want to run RFQ after RFQ, but if we're looking for someone to redevelop it the same way we have for the past year and a half, that may be helpful to let them know what's going on. We've offered tours, but tours aren't the same as what you're saying. We've had developers go through there and look around, and they all know that there's a certain amount of asbestos. They know that there's some lead-based paint because the building was built a long time ago. But the kind of things you're talking about, they probably don't know exactly what they'd be getting into. Maybe we could try and come up with an assessment of that with their help. But again, I would caution, I'd like you to think about if it's really going to lead to another RFQ or where you want to take it in terms of if you want to actively look for another party to redevelop it and tie that together.
Alderman O'Reilly?
Thank you. I love the discussion you guys had, and I love that you're not, I guess, holding steady to this is what we want. I know I had mentioned early on in this that I think we have to look at potential of removing some of that building. And I think everyone would kind of agree, maybe I'm wrong. The historic nature of that building is the tower. It's the rest of it, it's rough looking. But that would we could create some parking area, alleviate some of that if we get some housing in there. And I think ultimately, if this doesn't work out, the reality is I don't know what the disposal of a building like that would be, and I'm not advocating for it, much like you said, because I think the building is really cool. But the redevelopment cost for someone to come in and build there is going to be very low compared to trying to redo a building like that. I can't even imagine the kind of structural issues that they're going to run into with meeting new codes, and I'm thinking that's what's scaring a lot of them. So I'm glad that's an option, although, again, not advocating for it. I'd love to see that building stay there, but thank you for the work you did on it.
You're welcome. And yeah, the previous developer that we were working with, Jeffers, they were estimating the redevelopment cost of the project at being $26 million. I don't remember the breakdown, but it is daunting. When you walk through that building, and I've toured it 3 times myself, you do see some features when you look around that you say, this could be really cool. But you also see a lot of things that require a lot of work. True.
Alderman Fire?
I'm on the CDA, and we had to look for developers to do the towers and Cedar Rail, and we picked Gorman, and we asked at that time we asked Gorman what he thought, and when he was also one of the bidders for the original one, we asked him what he thought the proper purpose for that building was. He said affordable housing was going to fly. He said that's what that building is made for. He was very explicit. That's what we should be doing. And you can see now what's happening. It's not going to happen because mixed use is not. He said that was the proper use for that building, and that's what he said. That's when he was one of the groups that was bidding the original time for the original project.
Well, I didn't put it down as one of the options, but certainly going back to a Jeffers or a Gorman or somebody, if you're interested in going the affordable housing direction is always a possibility. I know they do projects and they might take a second look.
Any other questions, comments? Yes, Alderman Weigel. Thank you.
Okay, a couple of things. First, Steve, do we have any progress on the Second Street corridor redevelopment outside of Weinbrenner?
Not that would be noteworthy, I don't think. I mean, you know, we talked with the developer, with the consultant. In fact, some of us were just talking about where that's going and where it hasn't gone yet, really. The next focus would be the old Baltus building being raised and that property redeveloped if, in fact, the police station is going to move to the south end. I think you know this, but in the past year, the consultant has met with the property owners, all of them along that strip, trying to find out what they might be interested in doing. Are they looking at selling, trying to see if there's an opportunity to start creating additional and new development on that strip. But as far as is there anything really active going at the moment that would be noteworthy to report here? Probably not at the moment.
Right, because this is my 2 cents. I think we all on the council were kind of jaded to some degree when the initial drawings were passed around. And I get it, there were initial drawings, but it was all, mixed use and it looked like a fancy boutique area. And then all of a sudden, all the proposals were low-income housing. I think it was just very jarring to have that juxtaposition. So I don't think they did us any favors as far as our expectations went. Secondly, I know we discussed this, and I can't remember if it was, before or after council or something like that, but I know I've talked to a couple people about it, but we may have picked the wrong building to start with. Because if you're picking the biggest building there in the Second Street corridor, and we're asking for, boutique shops or something like that, and they're looking at the rest of the corridor, seeing nothing going on, there's probably some degree of apprehension of going, okay, what am I actually going to get myself into? Or is it going to stay the same or not? But then again, with the timing of Weinbrenner moving, I think our hand was kind of forced. So I think, like you said, all options are on the table, but my impression is that we got offers for LIHTC housing mainly because you had federal money covering it and it was low investment for the developers. And just because it's good for the developers doesn't necessarily mean it's good for us. But I don't have any answers. I just think we're stuck in a tough position here.
If I can speak for a second, I think that it's a chicken and egg thing. I think that the perception many of us have had, certainly that the consultant has had, is that you really kick off the Second Street corridor program in a meaningful way by making a splash. And the 2 places to make a splash are redevelopment of the Weinbrenner building or getting the Public Works garage out of that area. And the second of those 2 probably isn't going to happen anytime soon. You could make an argument that by trying to get some other development going first, you could build some sense of, redevelopment energy apart from the Weinbrenner building. But it was thought that by getting a good productive use in there and like I said, making kind of a show out of it to some degree, that would be the kickoff for really getting the other property owners interested in the community interested in redevelopment, right, wrong, or otherwise.
Right, 'cause I guess my thought, and by no means am I pretending to be a real estate developer or anything like that, but the cost to redevelop a smaller building is significantly less than the 26 million for that Weinbrenner building. So there might be more appetite to redo a smaller building. And then at that point, people are going, okay, it's actually moving, we're going in this direction. And they can, maybe be more willing to go with, I don't know. I don't want to say boutique shops again, because I don't want to put us in that corner, but something else other than LIHTC.
You're still talking about the Weinbrenner building, though?
Mm-mm.
No, you're talking about other buildings. Yeah.
Right, where the cost to redevelop it or something would be significantly less than 26 mil.
Yeah, and as far as the other properties along that strip, like I said, they tried to identify people who might be interested in selling or doing something else with their properties. And at some level, it'll probably come down to whether or not the city wants to be proactive in terms of trying to help facilitate redevelopment into some of those things that you see on the corridor plan if you look back to 2022. And, you could make an impact on other parcels as well besides Weinbrenner and the Public Works Garage.
Alderman Fire?
One item we didn't address, and it's the elephant in the room. Once this building is not occupied, you're going to have to board up the windows, and also you're going to have police protection for that building, because you know what's going to happen. The little men out there are going to start getting into that building and squatters. And there's no way to stop them. So there's no way. You're going to have to secure that building pretty tight so it's safe, because otherwise they're going to be all over that building. And the longer it sits, the worse it's going to get. And you have to maintain the heat in that building anyway. If you don't, it'll just fall apart.
Alderman Varsho?
Before I start, Mr. Barg, what was the first year the Second Street Corner project was presented?
The plan was embraced in the summer of 2022, and the real work to try and do something with it began later in 2023.
So we have a 3-year-old design.
Correct.
We did have a presentation here for a city garage in conjunction with the county out on the Yellowstone Park. That was what, 2023?
Probably.
That was a price tag of what, 40 million?
It was a lot.
And that was 2 years ago.
Yeah.
I don't see the city garage moving within the next 50 years. I don't see townhouses across the street from Weinbrenner that's in those drawings. I don't see townhouses or anybody buying those buildings or those houses to put up townhouses across from Weinbrenner. I don't see the places up Second Street redoing their building or moving out of there at all. I understand what my colleagues say, and I understand what they want that Weinbrenner building to be. But like Mr. Rigel said, we are starting at the wrong end. If you want that Second Street corridor project to go, Weinbrenner building should be the last one to get done. And it's just not our fault. We can't do nothing about it. They're moving. We have a huge building that we own. We have to do something with it. We're not going to get, we're not going to get what we want to get out of it. So now what are we going to do with it? We're going to stick a whole bunch of money into it, leave it vacant, let it be vandalized, let it do this and that. There is no solution that's going to work for the 10 of us because we all are disagreeing on what that building should be. But Marshfield is a blue collar town. Okay. The rents from the affordable housing from the first ones, the $800, $900, and $1,000 rent, that's not cheap rent for some of the people that live in this town. That is what they are looking for. It's not low income housing that you have on the Badger housing on 25th Street. It's not that. That's low income housing. That is when you don't make anything, or if you have a family of 3 with 1 income. That's not what this was. The first presentation we got was a little bit different. Right now, I don't want to see a building like that tore down, but I just don't know where we're going to go. You can go out and see if any other, but you just sent out to 140 companies and not a one wants to do anything with it. They need the historical tax credit. They need the affordable housing tax credits to make that building work. If not, as much as I never want to see it tore down, that's what we're going to end up doing in a year from now when it sits vacant for a year. It's going to be tore down. We're going to sell off the property and a developer can put up some tiny homes there. And then the Second Street Corridor project will be null and void. Thanks.
Seeing no other questions or comments, move on to update on relocation of the police department presented by James Levin, City Planner. James, take it away.
Thank you, Mayor. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes, thank you.
Great. Thank you. I just wanted to give a pretty high-level update about the PD project so far. We're currently, sorry, I'm having some technical difficulties. Okay. So we're currently about halfway through the design development phase, and we have actually paused the project for the time being. At the end of schematic design, we received 3 independent third-party cost estimates to make sure that we're tracking. These ranged from approximately 10 million to 13 million, and this is a normal exercise at the end of a schematic design phase. This level of variance is really normal. SD estimates are usually between 20 and 30% accuracy, and because many of the systems and materials have not been yet fully engineered or priced, they're being flexible. So this early estimate range is exactly why owners typically evaluate their project delivery method at the SD checkpoint. As you can see, I tried to include some visuals just to give you an idea of what this process looks like. And so why are we reviewing delivery methods now? As we move from design development to construction documents, our goal is to reduce costs, volatility, and keep the project aligned with the city's financial limits. The current design contract was intentionally structured in a way that allows the city to adjust our approach at this phase if needed. So after reviewing the SD estimates and discussing our risk profile, staff who we've been working closely with Josh over in Public Works and Hap, City Attorney, we believe this is the appropriate time to introduce a construction manager to support cost control and reduce bid day exposure. This does not change the design team. BKV will still be doing their thing, and it does not change public bidding requirements under Wisconsin law. It simply adds an industry standard layer of cost oversight as we progress. Let's see here. What does a construction manager mean for us? In Wisconsin, construction manager functions as an extension of the city. All trade work will still be publicly bid and awarded to the lowest responsible bidder. What changes is how the project is prepared for bidding. So a construction manager would join the team during design development and construction documents. They provide real-time cost feedback, constructability reviews, help structure bid packages, and help us make adjustments before the drawings are finalized. The primary benefit is that once the bids are received, we can establish a guaranteed maximum price, or a GMP. The GMP places financial risk on the construction manager and provides the city a defined cost ceiling or something close to it before construction even begins. So for a project with roughly a $10 million borrowing limit, this level of cost certainty is going to be essential moving forward. I just wanted to highlight, I know this is blurry. So we're currently in an Architecture B101 contract with BKV, who is an A&E firm, and we're operating with a traditional design bid build, which has some bid day volatility. But the contract is actually situated so we have a little bit of flexibility to change it exactly at the time that we're doing it now, to onboard a CM and really start understanding what we need to do in order to mitigate risk when it comes to bid day at the final. For context, design build is another pretty common delivery method, but it is not actually legal under the state of Wisconsin. We're working with transitioning from a design bid build to an amended contract structure that'll allow for a CM to help us with cost control. So why this matters? Again, we just want to set a financial ceiling, and this is the perfect opportunity to do it. Staff have concerned about the unpredictability of the 2026 construction market. So we're just trying to preemptively address a potential increase in volatility in subcontractor pricing, especially in steel, electric systems, HVAC, and specialty equipment. Lead times and labor availability will probably continue to fluctuate. So a GMP structure doesn't eliminate market pressures altogether, but it does allow us to adjust the design early in order to keep the project on track. And this is exactly the time to do it, rather than discovering a cost overrun after bids are opened. So what happens next? Next week, the staff will bring forward a request for the council to approve and issue an RFP for the construction management services. Josh and I are going to be working, and the project management team are going to be working closely with the city attorney to ensure that the RFP and the contract will comply with Wisconsin State Statute 62.15 and with our local procurement policy. So if approved, the CM would be selected early in the new year, with design development resuming immediately thereafter. This approach keeps the project on a responsible schedule while strengthening our cost management strategy. In closing, our goal is to deliver a facility that meets operational needs and stays within the city's financial capacity. Reviewing and refining the project delivery method at SD transition is a best practice, and this adjustment will give us the strongest footing as we move into 2025 to 2026. So at that, I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions for James? Alderman O'Reilly?
Thank you, Mayor. James, I'm just curious, do you have any projected costs for a construction manager? Just the reason I'm curious is how much we already have a tight project here, and I'm definitely not adverse to having a construction manager. I think it may accomplish what you want, but I'm just curious if you have any projections on what that cost would be and how it would impact the overall budget for the project.
Absolutely. That's going to probably be, whatever their fee is, it's going to be a percentage of the construction cost at the end of the project. So, if we're working towards the GMP, we can actually run those calculations and negotiate a typical fee, which we're doing our research on. So again, this is a pretty typical thing that Wisconsin does. We've been researching past projects like the library in 2014 that actually went through a similar process, although there's been some modernization of what that is. But I believe they just took this percentage of the construction cost and they built it into their budget. And we've already gotten a couple of interested parties who are aware of the project and its budget constraints, who have been asking for preliminary information. So we're kind of in the process of making sure we're crunching those numbers and structuring the contract and the RFP in a way that will still incentivize somebody while maintaining our original budget and stay within our borrowing limit. So to answer your question, long story short, it is going to be a controlled percentage of that construction. And I think it's already looking to be pretty feasible, but we'll have more information for you next week when we bring the RFP.
Okay, I would appreciate that. What I'm looking for is what is an average percentage. I mean, we can multiply that by 10 million and get in the ballpark. I think that's instrumental for the council to know. Thank you.
And Alderman Spears or Alderman Rydell, we don't have you on screen. Is there any questions you have for James?
Nope, from both of us.
Okay, thank you very much. I just didn't want to get you out of the loop. Okay, James, I apologize for interrupting you. Do you have something else to add?
Nope, I just want to make sure we're aligned with the strategy and we're looking at other community models who have recently done projects in the last couple of years as well for a way to work with BKV in order of making sure we're right sizing the project and being good partners. So,
okay,
thank you.
Thank you for that report. Thank you for your hard work, and we'll talk to you next week. Moving on to item S, suggested items for further agendas. Alderman Varsho, Alderman O'Reilly, then Alderman Rydell.
Mr. Berg, you gave us a bunch of ideas and stuff what to do with the Weinbrenner building. The first meeting in January, I'd like to have it on if you can bring it, put it on the agenda so we can all sit down and discuss that. If they're moving out in March, I do not want to waste any time on leaving that building vacant. As Mr. Fire pointed out, it will be vandalized if we don't get started on it. Thank you.
Yeah, very appropriate. And I was hoping someone would say that. I was probably going to say it otherwise. Thank you.
Alderman O'Reilly.
Thank you. I would like a topic brought up on the speaker's last council meeting about the airport building, the demolition and responsibilities. That one kind of blew me away because I had no idea that they were expected to cover a portion of the cost or whatever it was. So if you could just break down where we are at with that. I don't think that I recall ever hearing anything about it before they spoke, so.
I think we should be able to do that next Tuesday.
Okay, thank you. And then one other item, if you could also bring back something on the progress of how we're doing on that policy,
Which one?
the one with if projects come in under budget or purchases come in under budget. I know it's been about double the time that we had anticipated, and I would appreciate it.
Alderman Weigel.
This is kind of a sister item to Mr. Varsho. I'd also like an update on the Second Street corridor, where we started, where we're at, how much money we put into it, how much money we anticipate putting into it, and what we anticipate the end result being.
Broadly speaking?
I mean, to be frank, right now what's going through my head is that we might want to pull the plug on it.
Okay, but I went by all I meant by broadly speaking was, you mean the total cost incurred throughout the process?
Right, and then how much more we anticipate as far as consultant fees, and then if we need to invest money for the redevelopment itself, to cooperate with businesses there and, support them financially from the city's end. What do you anticipate that being?
Got it.
Alderman Tompkins.
This one's time sensitive. We approved a budget for the Winslow Plaza coordinator, and we need to have an update on what our plan is to get bands booked, because they need to be booked by February in order to get bands this summer. So just an update on how are we going to hire someone or contract with someone or whatever the plan is so that we can get those bands booked in the next 2 months.
Any other suggested items for future agendas? Seeing none, who would like to adjourn the meeting? Motion by Alderman Dellis, second by Alderman Varsho. Please vote to adjourn.
Mrs. Sparrows?
Yes.
Mr. Weigel?
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you.